Okay. Hi, Heidi.
Hello, Professor Kimberly.
Oh my gosh, Kim.
Hi,
So
Kim.
we were just chatting about how many websites you have.
Yes.
Let's see. Can I pull them up?
I'm
Oh,
almost
this is your
erasing it.
latest. This is your latest movie.
Yes.
Oh my
It,
gosh, it's so beautiful.
well, it's going to be changing even more. As soon as we are in the go through post-production, you're actually going to see some wonderful stills from the film, as well as
Oh,
a
I
film
can't wait.
poster, as well as a film trailer. But we're not quite there yet. And
Okay.
what you're looking at right now, it's very so lovely of you. Thank you so much. It's our fundraising page off of our website, and we are fiscally sponsored by New York Women in Film and Television, which means that our film goes under their nonprofit umbrella. So
Awesome.
some of our people have given to that and got a tax deduction, and then we have a press page for some of the press that we got up to the point of development. Recently we haven't had as much press, but that should be coming hopefully.
Yep.
And then for those, because we don't have press just yet, we like to keep things up and real on our blog so people can kind of see where we are.
Oh, and where's your blog?
It's the far right. You're almost there. Just a little bit. It's to the
Oh,
right
one
of
more.
the bar.
I got that darn Zoom thing, that Zoom bar is in the
Oh,
way.
you can't see it. Yeah,
Okay,
I
there we
see
go.
it. Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's
so
awesome.
we talk about I wrote about a little bit about being at the European film market, and how the big theme at the market there was standing with Ukraine.
Yep.
So that was, there you can see there's the stands there. Those are some other posters, but that was the big theme at the market was hashtag stand with Ukraine, which,
And half of your movie, Love and Vodka, is set in Ukraine, right?
yes. The interesting thing there is a little background info is prior to the war, I have been started producing this. I optioned it off of local author and screenwriter RJ Fox, who teaches at Huron High School. And I started the film working on it in development probably around 2018. And I had finally gotten a financier and co-producer in Ukraine, and we were going to start shooting for a budget of around 750,000 to 1 million, and that was going to be in Odessa or in Kiev. And then the war broke out. So
Yes.
we actually, I had to regroup and figure out what to do. And then I realized, you know what? We've got a lot of Ukrainian diaspora and refugees in Michigan. And they all told me that northern Michigan's parts of Michigan look just like Ukraine.
Wow.
So we doubled Michigan up for Ukraine.
That is awesome. And I have seen your movie. I have seen it.
Can't give away. You can't give away.
Minus some sound and color edits, but it is, how would you describe your movie?
Well, you should describe it. It's a rom
Well,
com.
yeah,
It's a
that's what
rom
I was
com.
gonna say. It's a very sweet rom-com that is,
Transatlantic culture clash. Sort of
yep,
fish out of water.
Ukraine and Michigan connection.
Yeah. Which many Americans know, right? And these kind of films are becoming more and more popular, thankfully.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Sundance did very well with some movies where it was about an American going to Poland to revisit the roots of his family. And look, we've had My Big Fat Greek Wedding and all of these wonderful stories, right? I think in
Yes.
this one, the big question, and I'm hoping everybody's going to line up to see it, is to find out how did we find a message of hope and romanticism and love amid a world where there's a lot of darkness and war, quite frankly. How did we even that out? And I mean, I don't know, you got to see it. You can't give too much away, but do you feel like we balanced that off pretty well?
I do.
Oh, thank you.
And there were some surprises.
Okay.
A lot of times in a rom-com, you're like, oh, I think this is gonna happen and that is gonna happen and whatever. And there were some pleasant surprises along the way.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's
Yeah,
a really delicate thing, right? Because you don't
right,
want to be an opportunist on other people's pain and
right.
suffering. That being said, as I had started to put a lot of time into this and did a lot of research and got to know a lot of Ukrainians, the message I got from all of them, and especially the diaspora, whom I met over at the American Archive and Museum in Hamtramck,
Mm,
was that they want something about hope, about life after the war, about rebuilding, about family, about
yeah,
um, they want the world to feel good about Ukrainians.
yeah,
They want the world to support Ukrainians and to know that they're all about family. A lot of times the stereotypes out there are, in movies, you've seen them,
hmm,
Ukrainian gangster type, or um, it's always like in stunts about, a secret weapon double agent type of thing, and she's actually on the evil side, or, whatever. And I think
uh-huh.
this sort of like, this really kind of fights those stereotypes.
Yeah, yeah,
And does it with a message of love, but also this idea of like comedy comes from being sometimes uncomfortable in situations, but pressing forward and finding a way
yeah.
to connect. And that's what I love about speaking to you about this, because it's like, I remember being at EMU and you always sort of teaching this, right?
Mhm.
Whether it was intercultural um, connections or communication or leadership, and how to take a stumbling block and turn it into a stepping stone. It
Yes.
comes to that. So I'm especially touched and excited that you
Mhm.
enjoyed it, because that means a lot to me.
And, we have to be able to laugh at life, right? If we can't laugh a little bit along the way, we're
Yeah.
in deep trouble, right?
And it's not assuming that we have it easy. A lot of people have it very hard. And the thing I noticed when
Yes.
working with Ukrainians and the diaspora and many refugees is that they prefer to laugh. They prefer to laugh through the pain. It's not that they don't feel the pain, they feel it very acutely and they're very worried. Um, our editor, Yakiv, he's so amazing. And he didn't know that when his parents had him leave before the war broke out, that he wouldn't see them again for 2 years.
Yeah.
And yet we had so much joy. And he's like, Heidi, I need to laugh right now,
Yeah.
because otherwise I'm going, we're all just going to die from sorrow. And then actually the evil has won out.
Yep. Exactly. And I just love we're connected on so many levels, but I just published a paper with my
Yes.
colleagues, David Victor and Christine Day, and it's called Communication and Cultural Strategies Impacting Ukrainian Refugees and Others Involved. And
Oh, wow.
I just that
What
was
what
one
are some of
thing.
the key findings that you learned, that, or were they were what you expected, or were you surprised, or
Well,
what came out of this?
my biggest aha that came out of this, I have it printed here on
Oh,
four
yay.
four
Okay.
pages on a page because it was like 45 pages. Is the level of grief and the
Yes.
level of grieving that they're all facing. These, we have refugees all over the world, right?
Yeah.
We have refugees that have come in through the US border. We have environmental refugees. Morocco
Right.
had that big earthquake.
Right.
Um,
Syria,
there's a
I mean,
huge, huge number of refugees in this world today. It's like 50 million. I mean, it's just crazy. But the thing, yeah, I have to really remember about um the Ukrainian refugees is there's a good chance there's nothing to go back to, right? I mean, they have to rebuild
yeah,
from
when they've
in some
already
places from
depleted
scratch.
everything for the war. Yeah, absolutely.
And many people have died, and these people have left everything, and a lot of these women have joined with their families and they've had to leave the men behind.
Right.
So, I mean, families have been split up. And there's just this overarching level of grief and sadness, None of them wanted this, right? I mean, it's just it's just something that was thrust on them. And I just feel like we need to, when we're dealing with refugees, uh, not only Ukrainian refugees, but maybe others, is we just need to be a little empathetic because they really a lot of them are struggling, and it's going to take them a long ways and a long time to get back to a place where they feel like they're thriving again. And
And
that
I
was
think
just
it's hard for them
huge.
to open up as well. I mean, that's one thing I've definitely
Yeah.
noticed with Ukrainian refugees on our set is, on the one hand, they're very, very grateful for all the help that they've gotten.
Hmm.
And because they're grateful, they don't necessarily want to complain.
Right.
And they don't want to open up about their grief because they feel like that's impolite and that's like not the true form of how to respond to what they're being given. I'd be curious. I think where you and I differ in our experiences in this, which is really interesting, is that you, I believe, worked with a group of Ukrainian refugees who are also students, or what was the group sampling that you worked with?
The sampling is actually folks from all over the US, and
Ah,
they are
okay.
people that have worked with Ukrainian refugees. So most of them were
Okay.
professional level.
Okay.
We had a lawyer, we had a pastor, there were a lot of people that humanitarian aid workers that we interviewed that really have really taken time out of their lives, to help the Ukrainians and get them settled. So,
Well, I think, uh, first of all, they would say Ukrainians, not the Ukrainians, as
oh,
you know.
sorry, did I say
But I would say, from my point as a filmmaker and
that?
activist, I'm not sure if you're aware, but when the war broke out and I was in Berlin, we drove to the main train station where Ukrainians had nothing but the clothes off of their back, and they were streaming in. And Germany is, I think, maybe you know the details better than I, but I think Germany is one of the top countries that's been taking in Ukrainian
Top five.
top five. Okay,
Yep.
and it was all women, like you said, many women, maybe some elderly men, but oftentimes they would want to stay behind,
Yeah.
and their kids. And I volunteered driving them to a hotel or to which we were offering rooms, or helped drive them to, once they found housing, is to get them there, because otherwise, how do they get there, right? And then one of the things I did is I also connected many of them to German teachers, because here they are in Germany, but they don't speak German, and so they
Right.
have to learn those languages. And overwhelmingly, it's the families have been just spread out. So many of them I got to know. Maybe the mother with her children is in Berlin, but then her
Mhm.
mother is in Paris or
Yep.
in Italy or wherever they could find a visa to stay. Um, and I think this is the thing that people don't understand, is this is still happening. This
Yeah.
hasn't changed. And yet the anxiety, as we get further and further along with this war, it only heightens, because they really, above all, they just don't want to lose their family members.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't, I'm just, for me, I was so impressed by how strong they are
Yeah.
and how determined. And
Yeah.
I guess that's what really motivates people like you and I,
Right.
because we're very moved by that.
And the top five countries that Ukrainian refugees have gone to is
Okay.
Germany,
Okay.
Czechoslovakia,
Yeah.
Poland, UK, and the US.
Right.
And I used Franz Trampener's cultural values model to look at each of these five countries. And one of my big ahas was that Ukrainians are very collectivist in their thinking. They have a group focus,
Yes.
right? They're not, in the US, we're way over here towards individualistic, right? What? What are you laughing at me about
Well,
again?
this one, I wish I would have had this information before I like had them all on set,
Oh,
because that would have really helped me
yeah.
prepare for
Yeah.
what
And
we
their
went
sense of
through.
time is much more holistic than ours. We are so, like in the US, we're way over here on single tasking, right? You have your agenda, you stick to
Right.
it.
Right.
Ukrainians, they're kind of in the middle, right? They're kind of like, okay, you just get your work done. As long as it gets done, it's great. They're kind of in the middle between those two, which I thought was super.
So meaning like
Uh,
they work together or
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So they're not as driven by the clock. I mean, they are driven by the clock, but it's all about being holistic in your approach to time. So it's all about getting it done. You know, if you're five
There's
minutes,
getting it
10
done
minutes
by a
late,
certain time. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're okay with that, you know. So that was really interesting to me. You know, even though a lot of those countries are so close by each other, there's just some real you know, real differences
Oh, massive.
culturally
Yeah.
that was really
Well,
fascinating to me.
I
So
mean, Germany to Poland and then Poland to Ukraine, I think those in and of themselves are quite different. People take that for granted because, of course, in the United States,
right.
we're a big melting pot, more or less.
Big
And
old landmass,
and
right?
even though people like to refer, to a certain group of people from Northern Europe as just white, the truth be told is when you get within Europe itself, these distinctions are very, very strong. So I just met a Ukrainian director, and she has been asking for help in coming to the States, quite frankly, because she's like, I don't speak German and I do not think the way Germans think.
Mhm.
And I really want to be where many of my friends and family are and have this sort of very American way of thinking around me because she
Right.
says that's what I need right now. So yeah, that's very interesting, those details. What do you think the solutions are? Like, what do you think going forward? How can we be there for those who have fled Ukraine in a way where we can welcome them, but at the same time appreciate that maybe they want to go back. Maybe they're nervous about allowing their roots to grow too much.
So
Um,
really putting them in learning situations that they feel comfortable in. So
mhm,
whether it's a small group situation, whether it's one-on-one, you
mhm.
know, whether it's a specific type of learning situation or online learning, because Ukrainian I'm making some stereotypes here, but they're very, you know, self-directed and focused, but really making sure what their needs are and giving them that training so that they can uh adapt and feel a lot more comfortable is really important.
What did you learn about conflict resolution? I mean, I can say that one of the things that I had to be very, very cognizant of, and I realized this a bit later, is I did not realize the amount of PTSD that was there
Mhm.
and how it was important to me not just have typical set rules, but I should have really had even, and I did to a large degree, but not enough of hand holding.
Yeah,
You know, at least some kind of, and I don't mean hand holding in a bad way. I
right.
really just mean someone that when things got tough or were confusing or unknown or different, to just have someone to help guide.
So we talked the other day about the movie that just won an Academy Award, 20 Days in
Mhm.
Mariupol.
Mariupol. Hmm.
And I watched it yesterday. I think I have PTSD now.
Watching it. Yeah.
That is, I was, you know, I was on the treadmill when I was watching it. And, you know, the fact that I had a little bit of a distraction was a good thing because I mean, there were a couple times I just almost fell apart. I mean,
What did you see
it
it on? Did you see it on Netflix or what was it on?
I
Or
just watched it on YouTube. It was
oh
on
wow.
YouTube
Okay.
and I just Googled it and there was the pilot or the trailer and then there was the movie and you know, it's not
It's not an easy watch.
it's like you are sitting in the middle of the war, right? With a camera. I mean, it's just really You know, sometimes in war movies, you know, I don't know what do they do? They fantasize about certain things, or they embellish certain things, or they whatever. I
This
mean,
was
this
really
was,
PBS. I mean, this was PBS, and this
yeah,
was
this was very raw.
AP. So it was, they were
Yeah,
journalists who happened to be out there, and this is really what they experienced and saw. And I think that's better, because I know what
I do
after the
too.
war, among the film community, there were a lot of people who were like, "Oh, you should make a movie about her," blah blah. And I felt like, no, that's the last thing I want to do, because I'm
Right,
not going to do it justice. It's not my place. That
right.
for me was actually opportunistic, and I think that it's really important that people see this because it was so real. Um, that being said, again, as you said, you just had PTSD from watching it. You've got to watch it in a certain setting. And then, maybe you can turn around and watch my movie, and my movie will help you see what you need to focus your attention on to help
Right,
them to get out
right.
of the war and then move
Yeah.
forward. But
And that's what I love about your movie is you do, it's about life, right? It's about life and situations, but it is a little bit more lighthearted, which is wonderful because, I think a lot of people need, uh, a little bit more lightheartedness in their lives these days.
it's a lot. I think that we've got a lot around the world right now, and how do you balance wanting to take that very sincerely and doing something about it, because I'm always about, what can I do? How can I help?
Right.
How can we make this world better? But at the same time, how do I not be so overwhelmed by all these messages around me and the sadness that I just stop and don't do anything, you know?
And
And I
Heidi, I'm so proud of you. This is your second feature film.
yeah.
Your first film, Darcy. Where can people stream your first film, Darcy?
I think that's on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
It's also on Herflix, and it's also on Vimeo Plus.
Okay.
And then I'm hoping to get it up on Mubi, if people know what Mubi is. But
Awesome.
MUBI. So that was my very first, and that was actually a very dark film.
Yeah, the films are very different. Tell
They're
me a
very
little bit
different.
about that.
I think it's about so with Darcy, I was processing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that film was sort of like a take on the reverse Lolita complex.
Okay.
Lolita being a girl is groomed, right? And so much of the sexual objectification that the world and society has on young women who are in their preteens, teens, right? But they
Mm-hmm.
blame the girls. And today, this is slowly, thankfully, I mean, this film is like 10 years old almost. And in its day and age, it was kind of out there because they were not showing a reverse. This one was actually putting the blame on the man and not on the woman for the attention.
Yeah.
And I do think that it did make change. I'm always about social change. How can what I'm putting out there? I always wanted to do entertainment. That being said, for me, where I come from in my family, it had to be something that was going to affect change or uplifting or something like this, right?
Right.
That film was very hard to get through. I think I got PTSD making it, because it
Mhm.
meant looking a lot of my own demons in my own past.
Yeah.
And then with this film, yeah, I living abroad as I do now, and being an intern, and I met my husband at a train station in the middle of the Black Forest. I'm always about international relationships and cultural exchange, and I just loved the humor. I loved being able to laugh. I loved
Mhm.
the romance of it. And I also love the opportunity to research a whole new country and find out everything I could about it. And the only thing I'm a little bit upset about is that I did not get to shoot in Ukraine
Yeah.
and work with Ukrainian crews and all that would have been amazing. I
Mm-hmm.
did work with Ukrainian actors, which is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the other thing too is that I just didn't get to experience the country, because
Yeah.
that being said, I'm hoping that this will sort of tie Ukraine in with just not war, but the beauty of the landscape and the people, and how fun they are, and how much they give them themselves, and how they like to be host and hostesses at dinners and, toast together um, and then remind us that, if we can get Ukraine through this war.
Yeah.
Um, that
Hopefully your movie will be shown in Ukraine.
that's what I want. Well, I definitely
Yeah.
want that for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
I would really love for it to screen at the Odessa International Film Festival. That would be
oh,
major. So, but we're getting towards the end, and then that's where, if I may be so bold, I just wanted to say, if anybody has any extra funding that they'd like to tax deduct or anything like that, we could definitely make good use of any support,
right.
because we're in the last stages of post production. And for
And
my
what
part,
website should they go to?
they should definitely go to the www.love-vodka-movie.com.
Okay.
I think that's I think you put that there on the chat, and hopefully
Yep.
it's
And I
still
will
up
I
there.
will put it in the notes below this, and I'll also put a link to the article as well.
We have lovely perks. I forgot to mention that. So we had a Seed and Spark campaign for production, and it had wonderful perks like you get to be a VIP on our red carpet, our big premiere when we finally finish, or you could gain
Ah.
an associate producer title by giving a certain amount. Or, when we get to the point, we'll be even like, we'll cook you a Ukrainian meal. So there's lovely perks that are
Oh,
associated.
wow.
And, above all that, I think there's never been a dollar that's been better spent, because you're not only helping to finish a movie, I have not gained any funds out of this. I've
Mm-hmm.
actually given a lot of my own money.
Mm-hmm.
And the money has gone to paying Ukrainian refugee artists. So, for example, our editor is Ukrainian. As I said, he's a refugee. Our lead actress, all of our actors were refugees mostly. And we are waiting to engage our composer, who's living in Berlin, and he fled Ukraine. So he is a composer. He's done a lot of beautiful stuff in Ukraine, and he needs a job. So yes, he could take lots of other jobs, but isn't it lovely to help pay someone to do what they did before they had to leave?
Yeah.
He didn't
And
have.
I love that you are using your strong Michigan connections to support these people.
I think we have that in common. All of us, like especially around the South. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I love about being where we are with Eastern Michigan University, University of Michigan. Like we're all
Mm-hmm.
about community, right? And
Yeah.
everybody who is connected, who's not Ukrainian on the film, they're about community and really making this happen. I think David Nacht and Nacht and Associates, he's
Mm-hmm.
been a huge support for me legally and also financially for the film.
Mm-hmm.
So it is about kind of looking at how are we as a community and how we can come around this topic. It's like you say, I mean, you've always taught me this. It's about um, local, but thinking globally, but acting locally,
Yep.
right?
Local.
Exactly. And as
Yes.
Americans, that's what we do anyway, I think,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah. Um, those of you who don't know Heidi or may not know her background extensively, she got her undergrad at U of M, and she got her MBA at EMU. And what year did you graduate again?
2021, so right
Okay.
after the pandemic. And in
Oh,
fact, I did most of it. You and I got my class with you, and then next thing you know, we ran into the pandemic, and then we had our
yes.
classes via Zoom. So
And that was such an interesting experience for me because I took over a class halfway through,
that's right. Yeah,
and I gained
I
a new
loved
friend,
it so much.
Stuart Tubbs,
It
out
was a
of that
leadership
situation.
class, right?
Huh?
It was a
It was
leadership class.
leadership. Yep. Yep. And that was the first time we met. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was
Well,
so nervous. I was
oh,
like, "Oh my gosh."
well, that just goes to show you. I mean, look, Kim, you've been such an inspiration to me, and you're this person who is very personable at the same time. A person who's personable. That was great, Heidi. You're very personable, yet you are so knowledgeable and have so much experience in leadership and negotiation and conflict resolution and cultural ties and how to build bridges versus burning them. And I
You
think
know,
But
Oh,
you've always
thank
made
you.
it really tangible for me.
Oh,
And I know so many others, which is what we all love about you.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
Question for
I
you. What about your thing though? So when is yours, when is it gonna be, has it been published and where can we read it?
Oh, my chapter book.
Yeah.
So I just got it up on Kindle. I'm wrestling with getting the paperback up there, but yeah, it's called Culture Change and Leadership: Cases of Professional Dilemmas from Around the World.
Oh wow.
And yeah, so it's on Kindle under Kimberly Barker, but I just was having this conversation with someone at lunch, how it just takes maybe one or two tiny little steps to make a situation from win-lose to win-win, right? I mean, you're not going to always make everybody happy all the time. But sometimes if you just do one little thing, you got to find out, what do people want, right? What are they interested in out of the situation? And how can you meet those needs? And, you know, half the time it doesn't even cost any money, right? It
Well,
just takes a little
that's what
bit.
I've always, and I've gone to you with several conflicts, and I think you always gave me just that right little tweak to think about, so that it was leaning into something that was, uh, it was amazing to me. It wasn't even a problem anymore after that, right?
Well, and
It was
that's what
sometimes
I
it's just a
love.
very small thing, and it's the
Yeah.
communication that can help fix it.
It's all about communication, right? And being open and making things not just win-win, but win-win-win. So it's a win for you, it's a win for me, it's a win for the community, right? And how can you do that? And that's one reason I worked on this book for about 4 years with Dr. Jerry Glover, who was one of my amazing professors from college. And he left me he left us all suddenly in 2021, and it was part of my desire
Figure
to
it out.
finish this work so that it's something that can be out into the world forever. So
Well, I'm gonna
yeah.
have to give it a review on my blog website. So,
Oh, that would be so nice.
um, and what about the studies now? What's happening with that? What happens when you put that out into the world? Does that then become a book, or is it sort of just published and it informs people in what they're doing in the everyday light? Or tell us a little bit more about where this will be going for you.
Yeah, so I kind of had an interest in I teach a class called a professional certificate in
Ah, yeah,
cultural competence. And
yeah,
so I kind of had this idea of using this book
yeah.
in that class. It's kind of a workbook slash graphic novel slash um, interesting book, case book, I should say. But I also wanted it to be where anyone could use it. So if you want to use different, a trainer could use it, someone from HR, could create some more cultural understanding. The first two chapters are kind of training and knowledge based. Chapters 3 through 10 are case studies. So there's 7 different case studies.
Mhm.
And then chapter 11 and 12 are simulations. And the first simulation is around a cruise company in the South Pacific and how they can handle their increased demand for their service. And you reconcile some dilemmas based on that. And then the 12th chapter is a simulation on going to Mars. So you are preparing to go to Mars. And it sounds kind of far-fetched, right? First of all, you're creating the culture, right? You are
Okay.
creating the culture that you want
Yeah,
to establish on Mars, which how often do we get to create a culture, right? We usually inherit a culture along the way.
sure.
But then I saw in USA Today, like 2 weeks ago, they were looking for volunteers to work for a year to plan for people who are interested in going to Mars.
Very, I hope you reached out.
So I feel like, oh my gosh, this might not be as far-fetched as we think it is. So
I
yeah,
think
so
people are.
anyway, I'm just hoping that it's useful out there for people that want to create um a more culturally competent world, in that in a world that we can all thrive in. And I used to think, oh my gosh, we're never going to get there. We're never going to get to this point of being trans culturally competent
Mhm,
because, you know, we're all kind of in our ethnic cages. But when you
mhm,
think about all of the migrants throughout
mhm,
the world,
mhm.
I mean, it's like this whole world has just kind of been I don't know what the word is. We've
I
all
feel
been tousled about and jostled about, and I don't know. Maybe we will get to a certain.
I wish actually that your book though was translated into many different languages because
Oh,
I think it's, look, in the States, one thing I notice whenever I come back here is that Americans are very, as hard as we are on ourselves and the world can be on us, we're actually quite advanced when it comes to learning the simple steps of how to communicate within cultures, right?
oh,
Our communication is very straightforward. We often give a lot of like bullet points. We make it very simple, easy steps. I think we work actually quite hard, but I have noticed that some places living in Germany and others that they just don't have that system down
wow.
and they
That's so
don't have
interesting.
those means down. So that's why a lot of different cultures, when they first arrive there, it's difficult for them because
Right.
everything is very inherent and very
Mhm.
exclusive. And by exclusive, I don't mean a sort of a luxury way. I mean that it's just that it's knowledge, it's common knowledge among them, but not everybody else. And because they don't
Okay.
put it out there and they don't describe it, no one can ever breach that. Right.
Yep.
So it's like a door to so many others who are not there and just don't know. And
Well, maybe you can help me translate it to German.
well, there we go.
Well, maybe when the film is
Maybe
done,
you need
right?
to come to the book congress in Frankfurt and
Oh,
yeah, have a stand. That would be amazing. I think
oh.
I'm more than happy to translate into German, although I might have to enlist in a really good German speaker too to make sure that it's all correct. Because as good as my German is, und ich kann schon Deutsch eigentlich ziemlich gut, it's always better from a native uh, literature.
Wow. Heidi, I want to ask you just a few questions as a EMU alum. Um, what role has networking played in your journey?
I don't do it enough, believe it or not. I mean,
Mm,
I'm actually even harder on myself to do it more and more and more. I think networking is my journey. And yet that being said, I'm learning to, and I'm still learning this, it's not easy, that sort of push and pull between going out and networking, like I do, for example, at the European film market or
mm,
at the Cannes film market, or the Marché du Film in Cannes, or the AFM, which is the American Film Market. Um, those are huge. And the various organizations I belong to, those are all a big part of it. But you have to be able to keep up with that with follow-up emails and thank yous and remembering people and all of that. And that can get very big very quickly and very overwhelming.
yeah,
And that all being said, you also have to learn to be patient, that people need time. You can meet tons of people, but they need to
right.
see you in action over time.
Yeah,
And you need to build that trust. And that is not something that you can always put a timeline on. Because as you've taught me, everybody's different.
yeah,
And so that's where I am right now. I've been networking a lot for a very long time. Sometimes I feel like, I think to myself, well, maybe the movie would be funded already if I had networked properly, right? Maybe I wouldn't be having these problems. I'm trying to change that mindset within
yeah.
myself,
That's so good.
realize that Heidi, you're just one of those people, when you hear a call, you run.
Right,
And sometimes that's what it somebody's got to answer the call.
right.
It just, you have to learn how to communicate so that others can catch up to you and figure out what call you're answering, right? Why they need to come along.
Right.
And so that's not just networking, it's also networking with a message. And I think
Yeah.
that's a strategy that I'm still trying to work on in my own life today.
That is wonderful. Another question I have is what makes you tick, but I think we've kind of covered that a little bit, right? You want to share stories that resonate with people, right? That lift up humanity.
Mhm.
Um, what
I love
else?
well, I think what I love like the exchange we're having right now. That makes me tick.
Mm,
That's I actually when I watch things like the Oscars, which we just, I I actually have a little bit of a panic attack thinking, oh my God, what would I wear? What blah. I mean, I don't know if I could even handle all that. Um,
You will be able to
Whereas
handle
when I
all
was
that,
younger,
dear.
I would have been all about that. But now I think what makes me tick is just those quiet conversations we have with one on one, with
Mm,
people talking about how can we move, how can we change something for the better, and then how can I, how can I have a part in it without hijacking it?
yeah. And some people kind of joked about Emma Stone's response, the team, the team, the team, and how she kind of turned in her Oscar worthy performance, which I haven't seen that movie yet, but into it being about the team. But I think there's a lot of truth to that, right?
She's so
Mo-
right.
Yeah,
I think it's also the gracious thing to do. It's what true leaders do. I mean, you never do it all
exactly.
by yourself.
Right.
I mean, even for me at the stage that I'm at, I have the most amazing production supervisor. Her name is Julia Gensina. Without her leadership and her engagement, her ability to um, keep the boat running smoothly, I could not do what I'm doing as a director and producer. My editor, my sound people, my producers, like I think the reason I went to get my MBA in management is I learned as a director, you're really managing.
Yeah.
You learn how to work with amazing people and let them do their job and then collaborate. And then if you can find great people with whom you love to collaborate and you are honest with each other and you are committed toward when you do have a conflict to get through it and find a bigger ground, that's heaven for me. Like
Yes.
I could do that all day, every day, you
Yeah.
know? So, and then conversations like with people like you, kind of turning these ideas over and saying, well, how are you experiencing this in everyday life, Kim? And
Mm.
what are your next steps? So that's my question
Mhm.
for you. What are your next steps?
Ah! I am actually creating a class right now. It's called Managing Uncertainty. And the
Very
book,
timely.
the book that is kind of like a little course pack. And the person that I was working on with creating this, I said, this course pack is so good. We need to turn it into a workbook. So we are going to turn it into a workbook and we're going to sell it. There's going to be about 12 little exercises throughout the book that people can do. And, that will kind of teach them step by step on how to get comfortable with uncertainty and how to thrive when the pathway forward is unclear, right?
Love that.
Which
I
is
love
so
that.
much of life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What
Well,
would you, what, oh, go ahead.
I can't wait to see it. Maybe I can offer it up as an auction item.
Oh, yes,
Or
definitely.
as a VIP swag bag gift to our top people.
Absolutely, definitely. What would you say EMU prepared you for?
A variety of things. So first of all, one thing I really love about EMU is its commitment to diversity and to real people and real jobs. And it's I've been into I'm very grateful for all the education I've had, but I loved just really digging in to the nuts and bolts of true management in business.
Yeah.
It wasn't just pie in the sky theory that I had to memorize and then let go and never think back to again, right? And I mean, I think this is proof because you and I are still connected. How many years
Yeah.
later? 3 years later? 4 years
Yeah.
later? And I
Yeah.
still come to you for advice, which you, without charging me a consulting fee, always like give me. The other thing too is just how natural everyone is. There's
Yeah.
not this pretentiousness. It feels like I was so afraid of finance. I being in more artistically
Mhm.
directed, I had been told from being a young girl on that I was not good at math, although I actually was quite good. And I thought,
Mhm.
oh, finance is really definitely offhand. And um, I ended up loving it. I loved it. And I love that the professors made it so hands-on. And
I c Yeah.
I loved people like you, and I loved my fellow students because they were from all different walks of
Yeah.
life at the graduate level. Many of them were still working,
Mhm.
juggling it all. Um, but they made an MBA seem like the funnest thing in the world to do.
Wow. And,
So
you have commented several times on the diversity. It's not just the diversity, uh, racial diversity,
economic
um,
diversity, it's
it's
yeah,
diversity of thought, right? There's
a lot of students from foreign countries as well.
Yeah, yep,
So I mean, yeah, all across the board, and not always of the same opinion, like you say, diversity of thought.
yeah.
Um,
I call myself a pracademic. So I'm kind of academic, but I'm more practical, right? So
yeah,
I want to take that academic knowledge that's we all stand on the shoulders of so many people who have created this academic mountain, that we settle on. Um, but apply it to everyday people
well, it's like that's Ipsy
or
for me.
everyday use, I
That's
should say.
definitely Ipsy
Yeah.
for me. Like
Hmm.
I've been in establishments where it was very prestigious and very you're not good enough, or you're only good enough if you were come from this, and just very stuffy
Hmm.
and very pretentious. And I mean, that's fine for certain people, but
Yeah.
that's not who I am. I'm a doer. I get out there. I learned fluent German by being out there, not by keeping my head in
Right.
a course load. So I like people like that. And I think that's the kind of people that I met at EMU, which
Yeah.
I really appreciated. So, um,
I tell EMU students all the time, I said, you have a good reputation of being hard workers. Now you
yeah,
have to
and
work
it's the
smarter
best deal
and
for
harder.
education. I mean, at the
Yeah.
time when a lot of like education is so expensive and out of reach, it's
Hmm.
definitely doable. So
Hmm.
that's another thing that I really appreciate about it because
Oh.
let's put it this way. I went to a very nearby university um, when I was just coming back from Germany, and I went into the front admissions office and I said, I just wanted a little bit more information about how to apply for my MBA. And the woman at the desk said, okay. And then I said, well, you see, I have a vision about what I want to do with my life. And this was way before I was living abroad again, before I started my film company, before I even made my short film. I always wanted to make international features. Code, always. That was always my dream. And that was my vision.
Hmm.
And she said to me, well, it's nice to have a vision, but so it was very clear to me that I was not welcome there.
But
I
what?
ended up, and there was a
Oh,
big but, and I was not, and so I didn't even bother to apply because I thought, am I not good enough?
wow.
Whereas I drove past EMU when I was at a very down point in my life because my son was ill, my father was sick with cancer, and we had to do a lot of adjustments in our family. And I saw the big billboard, and it was like, why not today?
Mhm.
And I applied, and I find out within the next week that I got in.
And Heidi and we have so many connections. So I posted a paper I did do you remember this? At the end of class, I posted a paper I did about getting it all done, right? 12 steps to, when you're a scholar practitioner, you're a mom, you're trying to get it all done. And in that paper, I talk about an illness that my son had that we went
Oh,
through,
right, right.
and we realized we had another connection.
Yeah, ulcerative colitis. We might as well just say it.
Yeah.
And so you got me in that way too. But I think EMU empowered me when mm, the rest of the world was kind of ready just to push me by.
Oh,
So, that's why I'm always grateful for you and coming back to EMU. And I'm grateful for the spotlight they put on me because I did it. Now on I'm on my international feature. I'm very proud. My editor's in Vancouver. My team is in Berlin. It's Ukrainian American. And I did have a vision and I did make it happen, but I didn't make it happen without EMU because they gave me the tools how to take the steps. And I
yeah.
don't know how you get a better
Wow. Wow, girl.
recommendation than that.
Oh, that is incredible. I just have one other question. Do you have any advice for students today? EMU students, any other students? What advice?
Undergrad or grad, or does it matter?
Either.
Invest in you always. I mean, I know that
Um,
school's very expensive, and it's heartbreaking how expensive it is in the United States, particularly. That being said, there are scholarships out there. You can always go for them, but I never regret investing in myself and my
yeah,
education and my mind because storms knock houses down.
yeah,
Um, all those things can, material things come and go, but it's the relationships that you build with people and yourself.
yeah.
Those are the things that really sustain you and make you are who you are in your life. And not only that, it can give you a whole new life that you only dreamed of.
Oh.
And
And
they
you can help people, right? And other people can help you, right? It's all about reciprocity.
You're the reason. I mean, MBA. Look, Eastern. What I love about also what I learned at Eastern was, I mean, look how crazy it is it that you've written this paper on Ukrainian refugees and your studies on this, and at the same time, I feel like I'm a walking case study because I just went through this
Yeah,
with my cast and crew on set,
yeah,
and yet it's like it's just who we are. It's what we
yeah,
do. It's about how do
yeah,
we reach out to the community, take what we're doing, and then kind of work it together and see where it takes us all and what we can learn from it. So
yeah,
that's part of the community I think that EMU actually gives. And I only ever want to do things that way. I'm not in it just for me. If it's just for me, I feel like it's not enriching, and then I can go sit somewhere by myself. And who wants to do that? I want
right.
to be in a room with other people where I can lift up those, and they can hopefully lift me up too through our relationship and working together.
And
So
the end product is so much better,
it
right? When
is.
you
The
work with
joy
other
from
people.
getting it done together
Yes,
is better,
yes.
you know?
I
Um,
always say I can sit in a room and make up stuff and think up things, right? But once I collaborate with other people, oh my gosh, it goes from here to, just the sky's the limit, right? I mean, I'm amazed at even this paper, that we worked on. I mean, it started with a little nugget, of direction and truth, and and then it just built and built and built as we went through the interviews, as we brought on our additional co-author David Victor, and I think that's the icing on the cake of life,
I would
right?
really love to connect you, or you should be connected definitely to the American Archives and Museum because I think that they offer a lot of wonderful programs to the Ukrainian community. And I
Mm,
think you should definitely give a talk there. I think that'd be amazing.
okay.
So, and I'm happy to facilitate. So anyway,
Oh,
hopefully
well,
we'll have another conversation
I
after
think
the
so.
movie's finished.
Yes.
And who knows, maybe we could take it to the main stage and interview
That's
each other again.
That sounds wonderful. We were going to interview in person, and some things happened, and we said, you know what? We're still going to do this. Let's jump on Zoom at 2 o'clock today, and we made it happen.
Here we are, an hour
Yeah.
later.
So yeah.
So yeah,
Oh,
well, thank you so much,
all
and
right.
all the best to you, Kim.
And you as well. And I cannot wait. I have to go back. I have to go back to love-vodka-movie.com
Thank you.
because I want to see somehow I miss those levels, and I got to see what levels I can
I should put
afford.
them on the blog for sure. I definitely should put those on the fundraising. So thank you for saying that. I'm going to go
Yeah,
back and fix that on the website now.
yeah,
So
sounds good.
um, absolutely. Thank you so
All
much.
right.